Shocking love story, paralyzed widow ignored until desperate rancher reveals her epic strength. It was a pouring, stormy night when Fiona's world flipped upside down. She sat alone in her dimly lit living room, a silent witness to life swirling around her like a chaotic tornado. The townsfolk whispered about her tragedy, once vibrant, now a paralyzed widow. Heartbreak painted her landscape, every creak of the unseen world echoing with a heavy, aching solitude. Yet, on this night, something eerie shifted. A chill ran through the air, sending shivers dancing down her spine. Flickering shadows seemed to reach out, almost beckoning her to listen. Just down the road, an unassuming rancher named Jake felt his life spiral into chaos as well. Alone among his cattle, he could feel the weight of desperation creeping closer. The barn doors rattled with a gust of wind, almost urging him toward the woman who had caught his attention like no one else before. Why was it so easy to ignore her? Why did no one care? Everyone turned their backs, but he could feel something. Something invisible yet beautifully potent clung to the edges of his thoughts. Fiona held an epic strength buried deep within her. But would he find the courage to reach for it? The town rumbled with gossip. Haven't you heard? The widow can barely move, they'd say, eyebrows raised in exaggerated disbelief. Yet power surged beneath the surface of her stillness. Fiona sensed it, a shimmering thread weaving through her pain, sparking curiosity in the depths of her heart. Could a connection blossom in the shadows of despair? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the storm outside raged on, Fiona found herself straining to hear the murmurs beyond her window. The night air crackled with intensity as Jake made his move, driven by an unexplainable force. She could feel it stirring inside her as he approached her door, like a thunderous heartbeat resonating far and wide. Would he dare knock? Or would he let doubt win the battle? The very air felt electric, thick with unanswered questions and suspended moments. In that moment, she caught a glimpse of triumph, not just for herself but for the man standing on the edge of her life, hesitant yet hopeful. What would happen when he discovered what she truly held within? The door creaked, a single sound slicing through the storm like a beacon. Was she ready? Did he understand the monumental choice he was facing? The truth hid behind a frail curtain, waiting to be unveiled. Fiona's breath caught in her throat as the door creaked open, revealing Jake's silhouette framed against the stormy night. His tall figure leaned forward, an embodiment of raw resolve contrasted with her fragile state. She could see the uncertainty carved into his features, hesitation flickering in his eyes like the candlelight around her. Fiona, he murmured, stepping inside, his voice barely rising above the howling wind. The warmth of his presence rippled through the chilly room, like a ray of sunlight fighting through dark clouds. I wanted to see if you're okay. How could he ask such a thing, when it was so clear she was not? But beneath the layers of pain, there was a spark, a fire waiting to ignite. She wanted to tell him, she wanted him to know she was more than the tragedy they labeled her, more than her stillness. But how could she convey her thoughts trapped in silence? Jake took a step closer. The storm raged on, creating a chaos that felt almost right. I've heard all the stories, you know. His words were heavy, laden with empathy. But I see something else in you. Something powerful. His honest gaze felt like an unspoken promise. Fiona's chest tightened. What he saw was a reflection of her yearning not just for connection, but for freedom from the chains of her own despair. Could they truly understand the fire inside her? Just like the wind outside, she swirled with confusion yet craved the intensity of his presence. Do you believe in strength? She finally dared to ask, her voice trembling slightly. It felt monumental, that question. It was as if she were asking him to peel back the layers of their fears and dive deeper into the truth. Jake paused, taking a moment that felt like a lifetime. I have to believe there's strength in everyone. Even those that feel they're at their most vulnerable. Tears stung her eyes, a release she hadn't allowed herself in ages. His understanding was a balm, soothing her wounded spirit. But just as hope flickered, worry crept in. What if he walked away? What if he saw her paralyzed body as the final chapter? Fiona, he continued, breaking her reverie, would you let me help you? There's so much you can still do. I can feel it and I want to be there with you. Her heart hesitated, torn between vulnerability and the fear of opening up. The walls she had built around herself felt both comforting and suffocating. The prospect of accepting help, of belonging, made her palms sweat. I don't even know how her words faltered. She felt exposed, staring straight into the depths of uncertainty. Just then, thunder rumbled once more, shaking the very foundation of her world. Outside, the storm was relentless, just like her own battle for survival. In that moment, she made a choice, a heartbeat echoing her inner strength. Okay, let's try. But even as the words left her lips, shadows loomed larger than ever, shadows of doubt and fear that could threaten to pull her under. Would she be able to bridge the void between her pain and the possibility of love? And even more pressing, could Jake confront the darkness that lurked just beyond the horizon? As they stood together in that flickering light, an unexpected sound sliced through the air, a sharp crash from outside, followed by frantic mooing from the barn. Fiona's heart raced, the ominous noise pulling them both toward the unknown. What now awaited them in the tempest that swirled beyond the fragile safety of her home? Fiona's heart thudded like a drum, the sound engulfing the room as the wind howled outside. She felt trapped, stuck between the warmth of Jake's presence and the sinister chaos beyond the walls. What was that? She breathed, eyes wide with fear, as another loud thud shook the barn. Stay here, Jake urged, moving toward the door. There was a gravity to his voice that sent a quiver down her spine. His confidence both comforted and terrified her. Wait. Don't leave me. She reached out instinctively, gripping his arm tight. The storm beyond was already wreaking havoc, and the thought of him walking out into it felt like a betrayal of the connection they had just begun to forge. Jake turned to her, the lines of worry deepening on his face. I'll be right back. I promise. His hands covered hers, warm and steady, grounding her in the midst of the tempest. As he stepped out into the storm, the world beyond her door became a maelstrom. Rain lashed against the walls, and thunder clapped like a million angry hands. Fiona remained rooted in place, every instinct screaming for her to follow, to face whatever lurked outside that barn with him. Outside, Jake squinted into the relentless downpour, straining to see the source of the crash. The barn stood like a dark, hulking silhouette against the fury of the storm. As he approached the shadows, the frantic mooing grew louder, a desperate sound that echoed Fiona's inner turmoil. What are you hiding? He called into the storm, knowing that danger could be lurking just out of sight. His pulse raced, every caution ignored as adrenaline surged. But the moment he reached the barn, a figure catapulted out from the shadows, disoriented, drenched in rain, a frantic energy radiating from the creature. It was a cow, wild and restless, breaking free from its pen, but Jake's instinct sensed something deeper, a raw panic that went beyond just an escaped animal. Back inside, Fiona bit her lip, unable to stay still. The thunder rumbled ominously, but it was the deep sounds of chaos that sent fear clawing at her heart. Without thinking, she wheeled herself toward the door, every muscle in her body taut with determination. Fiona! Jake shouted from outside, his voice filled with urgency. Get back! But she wouldn't listen. Something unleashed within her a need to face whatever chaos awaited them. She rolled into the storm's fury, wind and rain smacking against her skin like icy fingers. Jake! She called, her voice barely cutting through the cacophony. She needed him to see her, needed him to embrace the strength she was slowly waking up to. When he turned, his eyes widened in shock, a mix of fear and admiration flooding his features. What are you doing? He rasped, incredulous. Together, Jake, she pleaded, her voice choking on the intensity of the moment. We can't hide anymore. We have to face this. Just then, another crashing sound erupted from the barn, followed by a sudden silence that sent icy dread down her spine. Something was wrong. The tension in the air thickened, molding fear into a physical weight on her shoulders. Fiona, stay close. Jake shouted, moving toward her, intent on keeping her safe, but an unsettling truth washed over them both. Their fears were palpable, swirling in the tempest around them, and then, as if summoned by their unvoiced anxieties, a dark figure stepped into view near the barn, one with a silhouette that sent a shiver racing down Fiona's spine. Was it her imagination, or did shadows shift where they shouldn't? What is that? Jake whispered, his voice barely rising above the tempest. Fiona held her breath, every nerve on edge, as the figure approached. The storm raged, but all she could focus on was the unknown. What had they just uncovered? As the figure drew nearer, the storm as tumultuous as their fears, a chilling question hung in the air. Were they ready to confront not just the world outside, but the demons within? The figure moved slowly, deliberate and shrouded in darkness, leaving a trail of dread in its wake. Fiona squinted, her heart racing as she tried to discern what or who was emerging from the shadows. Jake, I don't like this, she murmured, feeling the tightening grip of fear coil around her. Stay behind me, he said firmly, the authority in his voice cutting through the sound of the wind. But it was too late. The presence before them seemed to be almost separate from the storm itself, an entity that commanded attention, drawing them in like moths to a flame. With a trembling hand, Fiona shielded her eyes from the rain lashing against her face. As the figure stepped forward, the storm's fury seemed to dissipate into an eerie calm. In its place was a face they recognized, a face they had never thought they'd see again. Eli. Jake's voice cracked as if it had been caught in his throat. The brother he thought lost to the world now stood there, soaked but unbroken, a mixture of relief and horror flooding through him. Fiona's mind reeled. Eli had been gone for years, swallowed whole by tales worse than the storm. Her memories of him wove between moments of joy and agony, shining a light on their complicated history. What happened to you? She managed to choke out, stepping forward against her instincts. Eli looked between them, his face grim. The storm isn't what you need to fear. It's what's coming after me, for us, he said, voice low and urgent, glancing over his shoulder as if the unseen terrors lurked just beyond their vision. What do you mean? Jake asked, stepping instinctively closer to Fiona. The surge of protectiveness ignited a fierce determination within him. Eli's eyes darted back to the barn, the other world that lay hidden under the soaking rain. I saw them, people. They've been watching. They know what's here. His words hung heavily in the air, laced with unspoken threats and fears that clawed at their minds. What do they want? Fiona felt as if the ground beneath her was shifting, a world she thought she understood unraveling with every revelation. Your gift, Eli replied, his tone serious, locking eyes with her. And the power we thought was buried. They want to control it. Fiona felt her pulse hammering against her throat. What are you talking about? I don't have any gift. But even as she said it, she felt the flickers of her past, her hidden strengths, her long-held dreams, laughter long lost, buried. You do, Eli insisted. It's why they're here. It's why they came for me. The chilling realization tightened around her heart. Something she'd always denied could hold any truth was staring back at her. The storms outside felt lesser compared to the storm of possibility swirling within, waiting to be unleashed. Suddenly, a loud crash from within the barn erupted, shaking the ground beneath them. Laughter echoed, dark and twisted, mingling with the wind. And there came another form, this one even darker, swirling into view, more monstrous than she ever imagined. Jake gripped Fiona's arm tighter. We can't stay here. Not now. But Fiona's instincts screamed at her. No. We can't run. We need to stand. The time for hiding is over. Eli nodded, the weight of their fate heavy on his shoulders. We're in this together. The darkness loomed nearer, more menacing by the second. Fiona felt her limbs surge with adrenaline, her heart thudded in solidarity with Jake, the connection stronger than the chaos. Then let us make them regret coming here. As they prepared to face the unknown together, shadows danced, revealing the true shapes of their fears and the power within them. But just as they braced for the confrontation, the storm's howl crescendoed, and the ground shifted beneath them. What lay behind the shadows? Were they ready to uncover not just the monsters outside, but the fierce strengths within themselves? The ground trembled violently, as if responding to an unseen command. Fiona's breath caught in her chest, the noise surrounding them distorted. The monstrous shadow from the barn lurked, promising chaos. Flickers of lightning illuminated the figure, revealing a twisted visage that mocked their resolve. Stay focused. Jake yelled, pushing Fiona slightly behind him. Eli stood firm, his face a mask of seriousness as he prepared for what they were about to face. He could feel it, the thick tension in the air, making every heartbeat pulse in his ears. What is that thing? Fiona whispered, dread creeping into her voice. It's not just one, Eli muttered through gritted teeth. I didn't only see them watching. I saw what they can unleash, things fueled by hatred, drawn to power like flies to a flame. They're all here. Before Jake could respond, a piercing shriek erupted from the barn, sending chills down their spines. The sound was unnatural, echoing like a banshee wail captured by the wind. It slithered into their skin, igniting primal fear. Get ready. Jake shouted, feeling the weight of his role as protector press down on him. He glanced at Fiona, searching her face for signs of panic. Instead, he found a glimmer of something else: determination. Move! Eli commanded as he charged toward the barn, scars of the past etched deep in his soul, mingling with the urgency of the moment. Fiona, despite the compulsion to flee, surged after him. Wait! She cried. We can't just rush in blindly. But Jake didn't listen. He followed Eli, his instincts pushing him forward, adrenaline overriding his thoughts. Inside the barn, shadows writhed like living creatures, each movement amplified by the flickering lantern light. Eli ducked beneath a low beam, raising his arms defensively. We need to take them by surprise. They underestimate us, he whispered, eyes scanning the shifting forms. What do they want? Fiona spoke softer, almost to herself. What do they see in me? Jake turned, eyes wide. You have to believe us, Fiona. Whatever happened in the past, it's your strength they fear. Then, with a flash of light, a figure leapt out of the dark. It was a grotesque version of a man, face twisted in both rage and agony. It seemed to pulse with an energy that made the air around them crackle. You are not supposed to be here. It screamed, advancing toward them, revealing teeth that glimmered with malice. Stand together. Jake called, pushing them into a tighter formation, hands raised. A sickening thrill coursed through Fiona as she felt it, the same power Eli had spoken of roiling beneath her skin. It was alive, hungry. Please, she said to herself, clutching her fists tight, show me what I can do. In that moment of panic and desperation, she let go of everything holding her back. Fiona felt a rush of warmth spread through her limbs. She took a step forward, eyes locked on the beast, refusing to yield to its terror. I want to let you take us. She shouted, her voice stronger than she'd ever known it to be. Suddenly, she felt the air shift, her heart thumping wildly as an unseen force swirled around her, a tempest of energy fueled by her own fear and newfound resolve. The creature paused, a flicker of doubt in its eyes. But before they could seize the advantage, more shadows surged from the edges of the barn, their whispers filling the room with promises of darkness and despair. More are coming, Eli warned, looking over his shoulder. We need to find a way to harness what you have, Fiona. It's our only chance. As the shadows charged, Fiona could feel her heart racing, split in two: fear of the darkness and an exhilarating hunger for the fight. The barn whispered secrets of power, darkness, and truth while shadows clamored at their heels. Could Fiona unlock her true strength before it was too late? What was the raw power hidden within her that could turn the tide? Would it save them or consume everyone in its path? The shadows converged, swirling with a sinister intent that sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through Fiona. She could feel the heat of the creature's breath as it lunged forward, its scream threatening to drown her out. The time for hesitation was over, she needed to act. Fiona. Focus. Eli's voice cut through her panic, as he stepped closer, bouncing on the balls of his feet. You have to channel what's inside you. Fiona clenched her fists tighter, feeling the energy pulsing through her like a live wire. What if I can't control it? She asked, fear flickering in her voice. Then we make sure you do. Jake shouted, pulling out a makeshift torch, its flame flickering bravely against the encroaching dark. The ugly figure that had emerged from the shadows hesitated, momentarily distracted by the glow. You think fire can protect you? You're fools. It lunged again, teeth bared, madness in its eyes. Back to back. Eli commanded as he moved into position with Jake, forming a defensive circle. Stay together. We won't go down without a fight. Fiona let the heat swell inside her, summoning memories of all the times she had been overlooked, underestimated. Every unjust word, every sneer, became fuel, burning brightly in her heart. She felt herself growing taller, strong enough to stand against the darkness. You won't take us. She screamed, and with that declaration came a surge of light. It erupted from her like a sun breaking through clouds, illuminating the barn and pushing back the shadows. The grotesque figure staggered, the barrier of light temporarily staving off its darkness. What is this magic? It hissed, its body writhing in an attempt to break through. Now, Fiona. Now. Jake urged, his voice laced with urgency and hope. She reached deep within, concentrating on that raw power. What was it her mother used to say? When you face the dark, find your light. Fiona could almost hear her voice, guiding her, reminding her of the strength she had always possessed but had been too afraid to use. The shadows seemed to scream, swirling with agitation as they recoiled from her growing light. That's when she saw it, a flicker of movement at the edge of the barn. More figures were coming, armed with malice, hungry for the energy they sensed from her. Don't let up. Eli shouted, moving forward with Jake toward the dark figures now creeping closer. Fiona glanced at them, fear gripping her again. What if there are too many? With a determined fire ignited in her chest, she retorted, no more fear. She closed her eyes, centering herself, gathering the power within. A wave of light burst forth, radiating into the barn and bathing everything in an ethereal glow. The advancing shadows shrieked in unison, backs arching as if physically repelled. The barn trembled under her force, but it wasn't just the darkness that recoiled. Something else stirred, unseen but tangible, lurking just beyond the shadows, watching with a predatory hunger. The very air vibrated with their presence, an ancient evil waiting, ready to pounce. Fiona. Eli called, his voice thick with urgency. You're doing it. Keep going. But we're not alone. I can feel them. Something worse is coming. The revelation sank like a stone in her stomach. What had she awoken? The shadows were only part of a greater threat. With heart racing, she tightened her grip on her power, ready to face what would come next. Then let us be ready. But the question remained, what evil hunted them, and was Fiona truly prepared for the confrontation ahead? Would harnessing her strength lead to salvation or doom? Fiona's heart raced as the air in the barn thickened, heavy with an unseen presence. She could feel it wrapping around them, cold and suffocating like a winter's breath. The light she had summoned flickered, wobbling against the onslaught of darkness rolling in from the shadows around them. Stay strong, Fiona. Jake shouted, swinging the torch back and forth to fend off encroaching figures. The flames danced, casting erratic shadows on the barn walls. For every step back the creature took, two more twisted forms advanced. Eli's eyes darted to the corners of the barn, thin slivers of doubt creeping in. "We can't keep this up for long," he murmured, his voice tight with a fear he tried to mask. It was the first time Fiona had seen cracks in his bravado, and it sent a shiver down her spine. Drawing a deep breath, Fiona closed her eyes once more, the warm glow inside her surging like a tidal wave. Ultimately, she had to believe in herself and the light she could wield. But she couldn't ignore the feeling brewing under her skin, a gnawing doubt that hinted at something worse lurking at the edges of her awareness. "I can feel it," she whispered, almost to herself, "something more sinister." Just then, a roar erupted from the darkness, a sound that thrummed in her bones. It rattled the structure of the barn, scattering loose hay and rattling against the wooden beams. The shadows appeared to quiver as if they'd just been threatened by the roar of an unseen beast. Eli took a step back, blinking into the growing dark. "Evil is stronger than we thought," he said, his voice straining against the weight of panic. "We have to find a way out of here." "But where?" Jake retorted, brandishing the torch, the flickering flame now the only assurance they had against the encroaching darkness. As if in response to their despair, the shadows around them pulsated, growing larger, darker, swarming with a hunger that felt as though it could swallow their very souls whole. The grotesque figure stepped forward, more defined now, a grim smile curling its lips. "You think you can summon the light? You're merely delaying the inevitable." It sneered, the mockery lacing its tone like poison. "You cannot escape what you have awakened." Fiona felt a tremor deep within her. She wanted to scream. Instead, she thrust her hands forward, focusing all her energy into a blinding beam directed at the creature. The light shot towards it, bright and fierce, but only caused it to stagger back momentarily. It wasn't enough. "More!" Jake shouted. "Put everything you've got into it." But the shadows were multiplying. She caught another flicker of movement, heads bobbing just beyond her vision. They were closing in. Desperation tightened like a vice around her chest as she recognized her limitations. Suddenly, a deeper, darker presence surged forth, something ancient and malevolent, radiating a chilling energy that caused her to shudder. The air grew thick with malice, and a figure stepped into the dim light, cloaked in darkness. Its eyes glowed with an unsettling luminescence. "No. What are you?" Fiona gasped, her heart racing with pure terror. "Only your reckoning, little girl," it rasped in a voice that slithered through the air, leaving a heavy, bitter taste in her mouth. "You sought power, but you do not understand what it brings. This is only the beginning." Fiona's fears coiled around her, suffocating her resolve. The shadows pressed in even closer, and she felt the heat of despair radiating from her friends. Could she truly withstand this onslaught? "Fiona!" Eli yelled, desperation cracking his voice. "You're the light. Don't let them win." With a howl echoing through her mind, she drew upon her fire one last time, this time deep and unrelenting. "I refuse to be afraid," Fiona shouted, as she pushed forth the light, willing it to break through the darkness and reveal the path in the chaos, but as she unleashed her power, shards of doubt flickered in her mind. Was it enough? Did she have the strength to not only survive but to conquer what was coming for them? The shadows surged forward, engulfing everything in sight. In that moment, Fiona felt the walls of the barn constrict, and as they began to crack, she understood something far more terrifying was about to unfold. "Hold on," she warned Eli and Jake, her voice barely piercing through the impending dark. They needed to brace themselves for a confrontation that would alter everything they thought they knew, and just as silence fell over the barn, a deep roar reverberated through the ground, vibrating in their bones, signaling the arrival of an awakening they never anticipated. What lay beyond the darkness, and would they live to see what terrible power Fiona had created within herself? The roar echoed for what felt like an eternity, vibrating through Fiona's bones and clawing at her heart. An oppressive silence followed, thick and suffocating, making it feel as if the very air was being squeezed from the barn. Shadows danced along the walls, shifting like predators waiting to pounce. "Fiona, focus!" Jake shouted, trying to keep her grounded. He adjusted the angle of the torch, the beam wavering against the swirling dark. "We can't let it get to us." "Right." Eli echoed, his voice strained. "Just keep your light steady." But as she fought against the enveloping darkness, Fiona felt vinegar-like fear burning in her chest. She glanced at her friends, they were shaking, eyes wide with terror. It wasn't just the shadows, it was the awareness that something monumental was about to erupt around them. "Look out!" Jake yelled suddenly, pointing toward the far corner of the barn. A mass of shadow surged closer, tendrils writhing and extending like serpents. A chill crept up Fiona's spine. This wasn't just fear, this was instinct screaming. With another roar, the darkness swarmed, and Fiona raised her hands, pushing her light forward with all her might. It flared brighter than ever before, illuminating faint outlines of grotesque faces twisted in malice. The light held them off for a moment, but for how long? Shadows snarled in agony, yet they didn't retreat. They pressed harder. "I can't keep this up," she gasped, her strength waning. Desperation clawed at her throat as the weight of darkness bore down like an anchor. She remembered the burning warmth inside her and called upon it again. "I am the light," she shouted, pouring everything into the beam, but with each pulse of energy, doubt gnawed at her resolve. Had awakening this power really been a blessing? Did it draw evil to her? Racked with confusion, the space distorted, warping everything into a nightmarish landscape. Then, from the belly of the shadows emerged a shape, smooth and sinuous. It was darker than dark, a force of pure malevolence. As its form solidified, Fiona felt her heart sink. The creature was no longer just a twisted silhouette, it was monstrous and terrifying, with an aura that made her skin crawl. "Fiona," it taunted, its voice smooth like oil. "Did you really think you could tame the darkness? It's alive, it craves you." Feeling the words sink into her, Fiona's stomach churned. This force wasn't investigating, it was feeding on her fear, her doubt, her very essence. She looked towards Jake and Eli, their faces pale and sweat-slicked. The shadows, emboldened by the creature's presence, began to stretch and throb, inching closer. Fiona's instinct kicked in, urging her to act, but what if her actions only escalated this nightmare? "Fight it, Fiona!" Eli shouted desperately. "You are stronger than them." That voice, the persistence, the unwavering belief in her strength gave her a flicker of hope. She breathed deep, remembering who she was. The warmth within her surged, and she pushed back against the darkness. "By the light, I command you!" she yelled, flicking her wrist and sending out streams of radiant energy slicing through the thick fog. The creature shrieked, recoiling as the light struck its form. The shadows briefly shrank back, revealing glimpses of the barn's structure, a reminder of reality beyond this nightmare. But then, out of the corner of her eye, a new figure materialized. This one radiated a sinister familiarity. It was a twisted version of herself, a visage formed out of her own fears and doubts, smiling darkly as it advanced with cruel grace. "Are you really fighting against me?" it mocked, echoing her deepest insecurities. "You don't even know what you're capable of, do you?" Fiona felt the ground slip from beneath her as doubt flooded her mind. Darkness swirled around her like a tightening noose. Could she break free from this shadow's cape, or was she destined to lose herself in this terrifying reflection? Just then, her friends rallied beside her. "Together!" Jake shouted, linking his arm with Eli's in solidarity. Fiona's heart soared. Together, they had a chance. Could this newfound unity ignite a power stronger than the darkness that threatened to consume them? With a fierce determination ignited within her, Fiona faced down the creature, both the monster and her inner self. The climax loomed, filled with impossibilities and raw fear. But could they find the strength needed in each other to truly face the dark? As the shadows closed in once more, she fought to unite her power with her friends, their fates intertwined in a battle against the chaos waiting just beyond the light. Only time would tell if they were destined to defeat it or if the dark would claim them all. What awaited them in the tumultuous depths? Would they emerge as victors or be forever trapped in the nightmare? The darkness surged around them like a high tide, relentless and unforgiving. Fiona's heart raced, her breath coming in short, shallow gasps. She could feel the weight of despair encroaching once more. Each second stretched into eternity, each flicker of light dimming under the relentless assault. Yet, with Jake and Eli at her side, they felt like a fortress, however fragile. "Hold on," Jake urged, the fire in his eyes igniting hope. He squeezed Fiona's shoulder, grounding her once more. The warmth of his touch fueled her resolve, a reminder that she wasn't standing alone. "Together," she echoed, gritting her teeth, channeling all her strength into the beam of light. The radiant glow flared outwards, catching multiple shadows, but they kept coming, insidious and insatiable. The twisted version of herself loomed closer, its smile a grotesque reflection of her worst fears. "Do you really think your friends will save you?" the creature mocked, gliding just within reach. "They will falter, as everyone else has. They'll turn away, just like you did. It's only a matter of time." Fiona felt a cold sweat trickle down her back. Panic began to claw at her mind, a terrifying whisper saying they would abandon her when things got too dark. Eli, sensing her wavering, shouted against the encroaching shadows. "Fiona, remember why you need to fight. It's not just for you." His words cut through the chaos, her friend's faith anchoring her. Fiona's resolve reignited as she recalled the moments they had shared, the laughter, the battles they had faced together. If they were to withstand the onslaught of darkness, she needed to believe in them, in the bond that had formed in the flames of their trials. "By the light, we stand together," she declared, her voice a fierce rallying cry as she raised her hands again. The intensity of her energy began weaving threads of light that coiled around her friends, fortifying them like a shield. "More! Give me more!" Eli shouted, eyes flashing with determination. In that moment, Fiona found the spark within, a glimmer of deep-rooted strength. The warmth blossomed through her body, sprouting tendrils of light that connected, wound tightly around Jake and Eli. Each flicker pulsed with the power of their friendship, a shield against the night, yet the creature wasn't done. It surged forward, a shadow tendril reaching for them, dripping with contempt. "Futile!" it screeched, its voice jagged like glass. "This will end in darkness." Before Fiona could respond, the twisted form lunged, pushing past the barrier of her light. A wave of chilling energy tore through her, unraveling her concentration, and panic settled heavy in her chest. "No!" Jake shouted, lunging forward. The shadows rose, coiling around him, trying to pull him into the void. "Jake!" Fiona's scream echoed, slicing through the clamor. She felt the tether of their bond stretch, fraying at the edges, threatening to snap. "Fight it, Fiona!" Eli pressed, eyes wild. "You're the light, don't let them take him." With heart pounding in her ears, Fiona summoned every ounce of strength and will. She pushed out her arms, the light flaring like a supernova, illuminating the dark, forcing them back. The roars turned into a symphony of hisses, and for a moment, a fragile peace hung in the air. If she could only hold on to this light, if she could contain the shadows, perhaps they would escape, but doubt infiltrated her thoughts. What if this wasn't enough? Would it break again the moment the light flickered? Then she heard it, a faint whisper behind the chaos, a plea that shivered through her. Fiona, it was her mother's voice, soft and soothing. Memories flooded back, lessons on strength, resilience, and the spark of life within. Her heart tightened, determination replacing fear. Together we're stronger together. That thought surged through her like fresh air. She grasped the bond they shared, a tether of immeasurable strength that surged between them all. "Together with everything we have," she yelled, channeling all her love, all her memories, into that brilliant light. As the darkness writhed, something shifted within her. A jolt of power, a revelation, a parallel to greater danger. Then, a shattering silence fell abruptly, smothered by an eerie brightness, as the figure of her distorted self began to dissolve. "Fiona, no!" It shrieked, an anguished wail resembling defeat. But before she could celebrate, the barn trembled, the very walls vibrating with a familiar sensation. A vacant darkness slithered in behind her, beyond the shadows they fought. Something much larger stirred in the depths of despair. A greater force awaited them, hungry for the very light they fought so hard to protect. What monstrous form stirred in the shadows beyond? Was this struggle just the beginning of a fight that would test their strength far beyond anything they had ever faced? The cacophony of darkness whirled around them, growing more intense, an oppressive weight pushing against their bodies. Fiona and her friends stood side by side, their hearts pounding wildly, but within that chaos surged a newfound determination, a flicker of light that was strong enough to push back the shadows. "Fiona!" Jake shouted, the urgency in his voice snapping her back to the reality of their peril. "The light, keep it going." In that moment, every triumphant memory, every moment of joy surged within her, igniting her spirit. It wasn't just her light, it was their combined strength that would forge a path through the dark. She focused on Jake's reassuring presence, Eli's fierce resolve, and knew they would stand together to face whatever came next. With a voice that carried through the shadows, she called out, "Together. We can't falter now." As she raised her hands to summon the light, a surge of energy coursed through her, igniting her very core. The magnificent glow expanded outward, illuminating the barn in a radiant brilliance that pushed back the encroaching shadows. But the darkness didn't yield easily. A resonating roar erupted from deep within the heart of the storm, reverberating through the ground, sending vibrations coursing through her. The dark foreboding mass that loomed at the edges rippled, its form shifting with anger and fear. "Fight, Fiona. We need your light." Eli encouraged, his voice steadying her racing heart. "I want to let you take us." Fiona shouted defiantly, the power within her stirring in agreement. Drawing upon that reservoir of energy, Fiona felt an incredible heat blossom deep inside. The shadows writhed and twisted, angry that their prey had become empowered. "You'll never win." Their voices hissed, swirling together, a multitude forged in resentment. With fierce resolve, Fiona poured every ounce of her energy into the brilliant light, filling the space with an almost tangible glow. "You're wrong," she shouted back. "We've already won." In response, the darkness lunged, spiraling toward them like a living creature, eager to quench the light. Just as the first tendril reached her, she summoned all her newfound courage, channeling everything around her, the love of her friends, the memories of hope, and the promise of courage. "Together. Hold on." Jake shouted, wrapping his arm around Eli and Fiona, his gaze steely with strength. In that sacred moment, they formed a unity stronger than any individual fear. The light surged and erupted forth like a tidal wave, crashing against the shadows, illuminating every fear, every darkness, until it flickered and shrieked in anguish. The tendrils turned to ashes in the brilliance of Fiona's resolve. "What is this power?" The darkness hissed, fear apparent in its voice. "It's not just mine. It's ours." Fiona articulated, his words a bold proclamation that reverberated through the barn, shattering the darkness into pieces. With one final push, a beam of radiance shot forth, breaking the remaining shadows into glittering fragments, scattered like dust in the gale, and just like that, the storm outside began to calm, the torrential downpour thinning to a gentle rain. The oppressive weight of fear lifted, leaving behind an unexpected clarity, an awakening of a new dawn. Panting, the trio felt the world shift around them, a powerful presence filling the barn, but this time, it felt light, not heavy. Fiona looked at Jake and Eli, her heart swelling with gratitude. "We did it," she whispered, but there was a tremor in her voice, as if she still wasn't fully convinced. Eli clapped her shoulder, grinning through the evidence of exertion smeared on his face. "You did it, Fiona. Your strength brought us through." Jake stepped forward, his deep brown eyes sparkling with admiration. "You're a force, Fiona. You always were." There was sincerity coursing through his words, a lifeline of truth that connected them all. But as they took a moment to breathe, the air shimmered around them, a reminder of the shadows that had been vanquished still lingering on the edges of their minds. "Do you think it's over?" Fiona asked, uncertainty cutting through her triumph. Eli shook his head slowly, his expression sobering. "Life's not that simple. This moment it's just the beginning." And she nodded, feeling the truth resonate in her core. They had faced unimaginable darkness, but light always persisted. The battle had transformed them, revealing strengths they never knew they possessed. Together, they stepped outside into the clearing rain. The world felt different, brighter. "We'll figure it out," Jake said confidently, squeezing Fiona's hand. "Together." Fiona smirked through her tears, recognizing that for the first time, she didn't feel alone. A bond had formed in the fire of their struggle, a bond strong enough to withstand any storm, any darkness seeking to unravel them, and as that new dawn broke over the horizon, illuminating the town they loved, she realized her journey was far from over. It became clear to her, the strength didn't just exist within her, it thrived in the connections they forged, creating an unbreakable line of light within the deepest shadows. They were ready to face whatever came next. So here we are, friends. This is where we close this chapter of Fiona, Jake, and Eli's epic saga. But don't let that be the end. You need to subscribe now to catch every exclusive story and incredible journey like this one. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep this amazing community thriving. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this closing chapter. Tell us how you felt as they triumphed against the darkness, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful conclusion. Let us keep the lights shining bright together.